Yeah.
Hey, everybody. It is April 11th, 2023. We are 2 days removed from celebrating Resurrection Sunday. My name's Dave. This is Steve Edwards. And for the next hour, we are your tour guides into the theme park of Mule, Donkey, and the Cadillac of the equine world. That's right, folks. Once you go donkey, you'll never go back. Once you have a mule, you'll never backtrack. It is time for us to help you get the answers that you need so that you can get the results that you want. Again, my name's Dave. This is Steve, and every week we do this. If you are joining us for the very first time, I do want to say welcome and say we are so glad that you're here. It's a privilege to get to spend a little bit of time with you. We know that time is the one thing you can't make more of, and the fact that you're spending a little bit of it with us, we'll do our best to make sure that it's not in vain. Steve, how has it been? You were out of town last week, and then so it's been 2 weeks. How have you been over the last couple of weeks?
Well, been doing weeds and doing trimming trees. We was up at the it's called the ZE Ranch up by Mayer, Arizona, and it's an old ranch, third generation, and it's amazing to see these cattlemen how they're changing their patterns and how they're doing their cattle and this sort of thing in order to have a good market. Like the where's the we got a bumper sticker around here. It says, "What's for dinner is beef." You know, and anyway, they're taking and they're using a Wagyu bull, and they got a special name for it, but he's a Japanese bull, and the marbling in the steaks and this sort of thing is really incredible. Anyway, when I went there, we went on a tour of the ranch, and Susan and I just went up the the day before and stayed at what's called Creekside Inn. So it was just kind of a getaway for her and I, and Jess, our border collie puppy, and so it was a getaway for us. So we did that, and Susan didn't have to fix breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and she just got a chance to kick back, which she needed. So we went to the Easy Ranch, and it ended the ZE Ranch, but they turned around and call it Easy Ranch. But anyway, it's really unique the way they're breeding their cattle and this sort of thing to have a really good quality product for the dinner tables. And the unique thing about this particular tour, it happened to be a bunch of professional chefs also came on the tour because they're interested in this beef, the way it's being created. And it's pretty unique. So it's taking and they're feeding all naturally. The bull puts out a really unique steak, and this sort of best way to say it, a unique beef. And so it was really good to see ranchers change. Still had the old ranch flair to it, the old cowboy and this sort of thing. But the daughter was up and coming, and she's making it pretty cool. So it was really a nice tour. The Beef Council was what put it together, and it was great.
That's awesome. Beef, it's what's for dinner. I grew up on that commercial. I can't remember. It was like some classical Tchaikovsky song that they would always play that in the background, and it was like the American beef farmer or Beef Farmers of America or something always sponsored it. But I grew up with that little jingle, beef. It's what's for dinner.
Yeah.
The way this works, folks, is you ask the questions and we do our best to give you answers based upon Steve's experience. And every now and again, I'll try my hand at answering a question just to see if I've learned anything over the last 15 years. And wouldn't you know it, occasionally I get something right. So if I know the answer, I'll throw it out there. Then I'll ask Steve if that's correct, and then he'll let me know. And if I can get it, y'all can get it too. The way it works is, first and foremost, we ask that you just let us know that you're watching. And I'm sure we've got friends right now who are hanging out, getting step one done. And step one is you put your name, where you're watching from, and what the weather's like in the comment section. This is our way of saying hello to you. This is our way of just knowing that you're here, hanging out with you a little bit, and we sure do enjoy it. The second thing is that you ask any and every mule or donkey question that you've got. That way we can make sure that the next time you get out there, you don't get frustrated. You actually get results, and you feel that rush when you finally see old Fluffy do something you've been working real hard trying to get him to do. And what we found is sometimes it's real complicated, sometimes it's real simple, sometimes it's a quick fix, sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes you've got the tools, sometimes you need to buy some tools. But no matter what the thing is, we'll give you the straight answer so that you can get out there and get straight results. So ask any and every mule or donkey question that you got. And then the third thing is we ask that you share the broadcast with friends and family. It's real easy. You click the like button, you click the share button, and you leave a comment. That's really all that we're looking for. And that lets other folks know exactly what we're doing here, and they can come hang out with us if they'd like. With that said, we have a few folks who are already joining us. I want to say hey to Dave O'Brien from East Texas, 75 degrees and nice. Eileen is watching from Nebraska. Sherman Johnson, matter of fact, Sherman, we got some awesome photos from you. Thanks for sending this in. Steve, what are we looking at here?
Well, I tell you what, Sherman is what everybody else should be doing. And that is do your groundwork, folks. The writing part, just consider that the icing on the cake. But if you build a good camaraderie with these mules to where they trust you and they see the leadership, look, here it is, an old tire with a bunch of dirt in it. And notice, that come along rope isn't tight. Notice it's loose and the mule is staying there because he says, okay, you told me to stay here and I'm going to stay here. That's pretty cool, And notice that even though there's another mule around in both pictures, and that's what they usually do is they want to go be with their buddy because that come along hitch says no. The herd leader, which is the person on the end of that lead rope, says that I'm to stay here and I'm going to do that. So there you are. It's pretty cool, folks. You can do this stuff yourself. You don't need to go to some trainer who 99% of the time don't know what they're doing. Some of these videos on YouTube are, I want to, it would gag a maggot as far as I'm concerned. I can't believe people are doing these things and they're thinking, everybody's thinking, oh, look how cool that is. They jump off of this big pile of rocks. So what? What did you just do to the front end of your mule with all those bones and tendons and this sort of thing? And they were never meant to be jumping off there with 300 pounds on their back or 200 pounds on their back. Now think about the mule, folks. Come on, let's help them out. Do your groundwork here, and you'll be able just like he's doing here. You see, just like he's.
I put a link to the Ground Foundation starting kit in the comments section, and folks will always say, hey, I'm getting my first mule, or I just got my first mule. I want to know where I should get started. The Ground Foundation starting kit is that starting place. And the best news is that it's not expensive. It's under $100. It gives you the rope, the training video, and it gives you a rope halter for when you get to that point doing surcingle training and whatnot. But the Ground Foundation starting kit, that is what you saw Sherman Johnson using right there with the come along rope in the picture. And we've got some other stuff we'll share throughout this broadcast. But you got to get it. Folks in the broadcast right now, they'll tell you it's worth every single penny. Judy is watching from Gazelle, California, where it's partly cloudy and 60 degrees. Rick says it's Christmas time in Southern California, 80 degrees and sunny. All right. Yeah, Chris, I think he's saying, where are the gifts, Steve? He's saying, Steve and Dave are live. Oh, man, it's like Christmas time. So, yeah, you're welcome, Rick. Judy says, do they have to feed those Wagyu cattle special stuff? How good are mules herding cattle to keep it mule-like? So are they feeding those cattle special things to make them Wagyu, and then are mules good at herding cattle?
Yeah, the mules can do very well. My favorite saying is there's nothing like the butt of a cow to help the mind of a mule, and that means when I'm following a cow, that mule has got his mind on it. He can see it. He's moving with it. They're excellent. I got some pictures right here to the right of me on the wall here, me seen with me on my mule roping. I don't know if I could turn it that way or not. See right there, those two pictures there, and that's me roping off of a little mule down at the Andrada Ranch, and they're excellent. Mules want to have something to do, folks. They really do. They like to follow a herd leader, and if you'll spend the time with them, it'd be good. Now back to back there you go. Here I am right there and roping them calves. And you can see he's just a little bitty mule, This little mule ain't but 13 too, but he is a powerhouse. And he was a mule that was spoiled by people. And when I say spoiled, I get a kick out of people, Dave. They say that I was talking to a guy today, and he said he's got a trainer that's been teaching him, and he said don't lower that halter down like that. It'll break the cartilage. And I said to him, it'll break his nose. And I looked at him, and I talked to him on the phone. And I said, partner, there's nothing there to break. Those two knots are in the nostril areas to shut the wind off. Okay. Other than that, we have the knots real high, their own bone. That horse there's not a mule. A mule will brace against it. A horse will they rear in the air. They have a lot of flight, but this, I've been using this come along hitch for close to 40 years now. And Nick West used it back in the 20s and 30s when they used to put cattle. I used to halter break colts and put them in a train car to go down the United States to sell them. And if they could take those horses and get them halter break, which they only spent maybe 1 or 2 hours on them, and they could lead them up into the cart, they got $5. And he says, Steve, there are times that me and my friend, we can make $25 a day. Now that was a lot of money in the 20s and the 30s, folks. And he broke all them hundreds of horses. Okay. Now here I am, 50 years later, and I've got all these mules and stuff that I do. Just listen to the people. Listen to them and see what little bit it takes. Yes, you see me pounding on it sometimes. Yes. Okay. It's no different than a herd mare spinning and biting and kicking at you. No different. Folks, we got to get this in your mind. This is an equine. An equine. They need a herd leader. Okay. And you need to be one. If you want to be passive, you're going to pay the price.
Awesome. Back over here, we've got Rory watching from Southwest Ohio, where it's blue skies and 75 degrees. Blue skies and 75 degrees. Rick says, don't know where Christmas time came from. Maybe that was an autocorrect. Anyways, Rick, I like my reason a whole lot better, so we'll keep that one. We'll laugh about it together. Dave says, my Molly is just over 2 years old. She is doing well with the surcingle, halter, and martingale training. At what point should I start putting the saddle on her for her to get the feel of it? I measured her cinch size, and currently she would take 26 inches and 28 inches. I feel like I need to wait till she gets a little bit older to make that purchase. And what I want to say here before you answer, Steve, I think it's great. Dave O'Brien is one of these folks who we've gotten to know very well through this program, and has spent time talking with Steve and just doing everything he can to go about training the right way and building a strong foundation. And I think it's the coolest thing ever. Dave is just hitting it out of the park, and he shows up every single episode ready to ask more questions and ready to get more education and more training. I think that's just absolutely cool. And folks want to be able to train, but Dave is a shining example of how it takes patience, it takes time, and you can do it. Steve, what would you say here to Dave?
Hey, Dave, just like he just did, he just took the words out of my mouth. The kid's great. I like him. I think I'll make him my second son. Anyway, another story. Here goes. Dave, you've already got the first saddle on him. The first saddle was when you put the come along hitch on him, and then you pull it underneath his neck and across the top of his back, around behind the hip, and had him go around in a circle. Remember how we did those? Okay. And you all have been watching my videos and this sort of thing. You see me do that. Okay. What was on his back was the first saddle. Light, easy, almost like a fly. What was the second one? The surcingle. Okay. Now the downside of the surcingle is it's only the 1 cinch, and it only goes in the front. Okay. And which is fine for a surcingle. But now here's what you have to think about doing. As you all progress, folks, it is what scares the animals more than anything else is not me on its back, not you on its back, not the saddle on its back, but the first time the animal goes to move off and it feels that cinch binding him up. That's scary. And when that gets scary, they take off. Good thing about the come along hitch, bump, 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 bump. Nope, we're not doing that. Nice thing about doing a surf single work and this sort of thing, you start prepping them for this stuff. Now, here's the next thing you would be doing, Dave, and all of you listen to this. Where the rear cinch is, take a rope and put it around the back half. Just put it across the back, reach underneath, pull it around, and pull the hondo up. And now you've got a loop around his belly, just about where the rear cinch is going to be. Now your surf single's on with the front cinch. Now the rope is on the back, creating a back cinch. See that? You just created a saddle right there. Now, sure, do I have an 18 pounds that's going to be on his back in comparison? Yes. Okay. I knew an old trainer one time. He made up a whole dummy with a dummy sitting in there. And he always thought it was because the animal would see the person above him, Well, you can do that a lot by standing on the rails or standing on a ladder, stuff like that. So when's the first time to put the saddle on? Anytime you're ready. Don't worry about how, he's only 2 years old. Well, you're not riding him. You're not going to ride him. You're just going to put a saddle on him. That's fine. And folks, remember, you're building a foundation. You want everything to be as correct and as good as possible. Okay? That's what you want. And so, I'll take just any old saddle and put it on his back because I don't want to tear up my good saddle. Guess what? The bars on that any old saddle are going to fit different on his back. The saddle is going to fit different on his back. And you're building a foundation, and what have you done? You just took all the good that you're doing and you made it tough on him because you put pressure points where it's only 1 cinch, for instance. Okay? A lot of that happens. We use a 1 cinch, and that creates a problem. Okay? So here's what I want to tell you, Dave. Get your saddle and put it on anytime. Make sure that your mule, make sure you understand, folks, that when you read an animal, you read them not just, okay, now I spent 15 minutes. No. Now I just did steps 1 through 5. No. As you're doing the steps, is the animal just as quiet when you begin as when you end it? In other words, he doesn't have to run off, doesn't have to jump. If he elevates his head, I'm concerned. If he lowers his head, I'm cool with it, okay? If his ears are nice and floppy and quiet, I'm happy with what's going on. Keep them in a happy mode where they don't mind doing what you're asking them to do. That's important, folks. That's really, really important. You want to understand, start reading your animal. And that's this clinic that I got coming up in Montana. It's called Listen to Your Mule and Donkey. And that's what I'm going to have you do. You're going to be looking for the small things. And by the way, Dave, that clinic is full, buddy.
Yeah, it is. Found out over the weekend, came in on Monday and saw that it had sold out as far as participants go. So there is a wait list. If you have interest in being a part of the wait list, I told everyone that it was going to sell out, and it has sold out as far as participants go. There is a wait list for participants, but of course you can still come as a spectator. And a lot of folks prefer to come as a spectator because it's easier to fly in, it's easier to travel, it's cheaper. And so a lot of folks, they say, I don't know if I can make the trip driving all the way there. Of course, they wouldn't let you put the mule in a seat on any regular plane. You might have to get a special charter plane to do that or buy 4 or 5 seats, but that's another story. So y'all can still come out and be a spectator And there is active involvement in being a spectator. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about the clinic first weekend in June 2023. Steve, we're headed up to Superior, Montana. Last year's event was so awesome that they decided to have you come back. And it's going to be fantastic. Matter of fact, we're talking about the same thing that we're talking about here. We are talking about, are you listening to your mule? Because your mule is telling you things. And over the last, I think, 4 years we've been doing this program, folks have been bringing you, Steve, and saying, my mule is doing this. And Steve says, well, your mule is trying to tell you, and then he'll tell you exactly what it is. We're going to do it in real time. We're going to do it with a bunch of awesome folks in just gorgeous Superior, Montana. You looking forward to it, Steve?
Oh man, I tell you, I've known Ron Den for a long time. I first was doing clinics up in Minnesota, and that was where he lived with his farm and this sort of thing. And he was the manager of the fairgrounds as well, so he could get the fairgrounds for nothing. So long story short, we've been friends for well close to 20 years now. And he bought this place in Montana because he sold his farm in Minnesota, and he's living his dream now that he's wanted to do. So he's a great guy. You know, I've actually, as you know, Dave, and I've tried to let everybody else know, is I'm actually kind of retired, whatever retirement means. I think it means do what you want to do when you want to do it. So,
Yeah.
you know, so with me, I enjoy helping people fix these animals. You know, I was looking at one review. I was telling you about it,
Yeah.
where the lady said, "It's you've got all this free stuff. People don't realize, Steve. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. How much time that you're trying to give, you know." And that's what I want to do, folks. I want to be able to answer your questions, help you out. You may have heard it 5 times, but now you finally got it, and that's what's important. You know, it took me a couple years to do this, and I'm just starting to get it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I put it up. We've got an entire section on the website. I don't know if folks know about this, but we've got an entire section on the website where all of the different testimonials folks have sent in over the last however long. And we got more than this. I'll have to see why it's only displaying a few of them. But right here, thank you, Steve. I truly appreciate your call yesterday. I've just received the saddle, and it is spectacular. I cannot wait to get it on my mule, Waylon. The beta britchin, breast collar, front cinch, back cinch, and saddle pad are extraordinary. I couldn't be happier with the amazing quality and look. I will hands down recommend to my fellow mule-loving friends. And so that one just came in. And then we've got a couple others that came in. Of course, Sherman sent his. And let's see here. Sherman sent his. We got this one right here. This one came in. I'm trying to remember who this one came from. I think this might have been Barbara. I purchased your trail loading video several months ago. Oh, you know what? I've got the videos. I've got the thing loaded up right here. Right here, Steve. Go ahead and tell us what we got here from Barbara.
Well, you know, Barbara's having a hard time loading her mule, and so you know she bought my trailer loading video and started using the come along hitch, and I want you folks to see here. We probably got another picture of the one on the left where the mule is just standing there.
Let me see.
He's just standing, but I want you to notice how the halter is adjusted, how it's properly adjusted on. I think we got some pictures.
Yeah, give me a second here. There were a bunch, and I couldn't fit them all on one, but I can bring up what you're talking about. Hang on.
One way you can see the halter. Now, the other one there, folks, with the come-along hitch, you don't just put the mule in and take him out. Let the mule stay in there. Let him see it's just as nice to stand in there. And notice how loose the lead rope is, folks. Did you notice that? Now, look here. Here's this mule standing there with an adjusted rope halter. And why is he standing there? Because if he goes to the left, the halter is going to bump him. If he goes to the right, the halter is going to bump him. See, it's having the halter adjusted correctly. You don't have to be there to train. Just tie the mule to the corner there like Barbara did, okay? Tie the mule to the corner and let the mule figure it out. If he pulls back, it's going to make him uncomfortable. If he goes to the left, it's going to make him uncomfortable. Got the idea? See, the idea of the rope halter is just not to lead from A to B. And what I want you all to see is these folks are doing it on their own, and they're trying different things. They hear me say something, and then they try it, just like Barbara did here. Look how nice this mule is standing inside the trailer. Look at how quiet he is. Notice that. Notice that his head's down, nose is on a vertical, ears are quiet. That's nice. Now the mule on the left-hand side, same mule. Notice how he's quiet, standing there, okay? Notice his left ear is thinking about us. That left brain is thinking about us. So watch for those things. These are all things that say, hey, I'm happy with what's going on. Not just, I'm going to go spend 15 minutes and we're done. No. You could probably get your training done in the first 3 to 5 minutes if the mule looks like this. If the mule looks like the one on the right-hand side inside the trailer, where he's quiet, his head down, his ears are relaxed, guess what? That mule understands that you took him in that trailer and that because you did it, everything's good. That's what you're looking for, folks. You're looking for a mule that says, you're the leader, I'm following you.
Awesome. Very good. Hopping back over, seeing who's hanging out with us. Hey, David Pengelly, a beautiful day in Manchester, Georgia, since I'm muleless, but Kingpins in the 32 would rather have been riding. There we go. David's coming out to Montana too, isn't he?
Yes. Old Pengelly?
Yeah, Old Pengelly. Oh, we should get him a shirt that says that, Old Pengelly.
Oh, hey, that's an idea. Old Pengelly. Did I see the video of him singing with my cap on and my shirt on in his 32 Ford?
I didn't get the video. I saw the picture of it. I'll have to look for the video.
It was Thunder Road.
Do you got that? You want to send it over? I can bring it up.
I'm not sure. It would be on my phone, I think.
While you're looking for that, Jim is watching from Alabama. It's 72 and sunny. Matthew watching from Lexington, North Carolina, sunny and 74. My mule Pedro is doing well. Just got a nice 9-year-old 13 hands high Molly mule for my 2 kids this week. May the ground foundation begin. I like that. Joel is watching from Idaho. I got that picture. Yeah, we had that picture.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the one where he was singing, but that's okay. I'll find it. Since he's muleless, he has to ride his 32.
Trying to see. I don't have that picture loaded up anymore.
Oh,
here we go. I still have the picture loaded up, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
There's the man right there, Mr. Come Along Coffee himself. Let's see. Joel is watching. 70-ish today. Snow last week. Matthew says, how common are gastric ulcers in mules, and have you seen it affect their ability to ride? What have you done to alleviate them? Matthew, you got this before I did. This was one of my questions that I saved for today. What would you say to Matthew?
Okay, so here's the deal, Matthew. Gastric ulcers are from an equine. Mules, folks, don't listen to these folks that tell you that mules don't get the same thing as horses. They do, okay? Now, this ulcer can be caused from a lot of pressure, like, for instance, overtraining. It's one of the downsides of overtraining. It can be an adverse change in the weather where there's a lot of lightning and thunder, and that usually affects the horse, not so much the mule, but though that certain bust of the thunder breaking loose and things like this is all, even though your mules don't show it, folks, they do it on the inside. How do you think you get ulcers yourself? They get it from holding it in, But yes, it happens that way. No, I wouldn't ride them. I would be checking their temperature a lot and seeing where their temperature is. I can tell you that my wife's mule started with gastric ulcers and it ended up being into a cancer, and that's how we lost her. But there are several ways of doing it. I even had one guy tell me that he fed Malox to his mule. Well, I don't know. But if you've got a good vet that really understands, it's going to take some good antibiotics, and it's going to take some good rest, clean water, and good food, and then some good antibiotics to fix it. But riding them, no, they don't need the pressure, folks. They don't need it. They don't. You just go ahead and show your mule that you're going to treat him with kindness and wait till he gets well.
Next question come in says my mule's dog bone fits her nicely at the dog bone is 5 1/4 inch. So I thought a 5.5 inch bit would work good. Do you agree? And then send a picture here of Callie. So there's Callie right there.
Uh-huh.
And what do you think, Steve? Would a 5.5 inch work? And how do you know?
Well, you don't really know just by looking at the muzzle. My first thought would be a 5. Actually, a 5.5 would really work for the majority of mules out there because it's their lips that are a little puffier out here on the corners. But until you do like I do on the video on my website, until you measure it with the string. So you take and put a piece of string in their mouth or a rope, hold it off one end, hold it on the other, pull it out, and measure it. Okay. If it measures 5, you're pretty much going to do a 5. If it measures 4.5, you're still going to stick with a 5. But as soon as it goes over 5 1/4, you're going to go to a 5.5.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks for that message. Hopping back over, Judy says they show mules jumping fences. Is this something that you think is okay to do?
Oh yeah, jumping a fence is fine when they have a cue to do it. And our cue's pretty much always been the old timey throw the jacket over the barbed wire fence. And we've already taught them a cue to jump when we want them to. So we throw the jacket over the barbed wire fence. They see the jacket. They jump over the barbed wire fence and meet us on the other side. Now, we do that a lot simply because we don't want to be cutting fences when we're chasing after mountain lions, or if we are chasing a bull that just went through a bunch of barbed wire fence. So, it just depends. And don't get me wrong, I have cut fence at places when I know it's really been bad and I've got no other choice. I'll cut it, repair it. But most of the time, if they're all my neighbors, they know me anyway. But we do repair it. So yeah, it's good. It's okay to teach them to do that. But it has to be a cue. Otherwise, they'll be jumping any fence they want. So it's got to be a cue. And to jump the fence without you on them is great.
Maybe that's what I should do with my 6-year-old. Teach him a cue so he's not just jumping fences whenever he wants. Had a question come in here from Judy. Judy says, I'll be subscribing to a couple Mule magazines. However, which one, if any, do you recommend? In another Mule magazine, I see what looks like horse saddles, loose rear cinches, lack of breechings, martingales on most mules. I really think your training and tack ideas make so much sense. I'm sticking with you. Do you have any comments?
Oh my. Dave, it's hard. It's really hard when somebody asks me a question. I want to tell them the truth. I used to write articles for both Western Mule and Mules and More. There are some good articles in there. There's some good ideas, different things. Just like anything else, there's good and bad in something. Folks, I'm unfortunately the mules in some ways of thinking is no more than a horse with long ears. And they saddle it, they bid it, they trained it the same way as the horse. And you can see it, okay? You can see, just look at the pictures. Just go on the internet, look at the pictures. Then I want you to do this. Like one person said, well, I see all these people without a breeching. All right. Where's the saddle? On top of the scapula. So, okay, test me out, folks. Put your hand underneath the scapula, right where the saddle is going to be. Okay. And hold it there. And then have somebody tighten up the cinches and see how long it takes before you jerk your hand out. And then start walking the mule off and see what happens. See if you can feel the pain and get an idea of what you're doing to your mule or donkey. All these folks is horse folks that have had a hard time making it in the horse world, or like we all know, the equine business right now has been pretty dumped. And so therefore, people are coming out and they're taking the mules and they're putting high prices on them. And these prices are no more than a figment of their imagination. They're not a price that needs to be correct on the mule. Now, guaranteed, how many of you would work for a year for $5,000? $5,000. So we sold a mule for $5,000, but I just trained on it for 12 months and I fed it and I bought it and yada yada. So you can see that's a different thing. Most of these people have bought a mule someplace at an auction, put a story on it, turned around and sold it. Okay. And the problem is, folks, you all can't see and don't know what to look for when you're looking at these pictures. Now, I watched a team the other day, a guy driving through the snow with a good looking team, but what they didn't see was one was working and the other one wasn't paying attention. The one had his head in the air and his mouth opened up. That's because he had a wrong bit in the mouth. And the other one was trying to do all the pulling. Yet the teamster wasn't doing anything about it. You know, I understand it's a selling point. Everybody thinks, oh, look, he's pulling a sleigh through the snow. Folks, look for the details. What's the mule on the right doing? What's the mule on the left doing? Okay, they should be down with their heads on the vertical, nose on the vertical. That's what you look for. You look for willingness in the animal. Now, you watch that same team of mules that we just saw pulling a sleigh, and now they're in a barn riding around. And everybody says, oh, look, you can ride the two of them around. Yeah, you can, but you're not seeing that the one is trying to hurry up and get with the other because he doesn't want to be that far away from the other animal. But you folks aren't seeing it because they're not watching the rider jerk with his other hand, trying to keep the animal in place, and he's trying to be conspicuous about it, think, oh, everything looks good. No, folks, look for the details. Don't just look at the mule. Look at the mule's head. Look at the mule's ears. Look at the mule's tails. Look and see how elevated his head is, how low his head is. If his nose on a vertical, if his eyes nice and quiet. Got the idea? Not just, oh, look, a team of mules on a wagon. All right, there's got to be more to it. Look for the spots. Look for the small things. Wow, you can get a lot done, Dave.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Cruising right along. Virginia says, hey, guys, it's a beautiful day here in Santa Fe. So looking forward to seeing you next month in Montana. It's almost here. Edie is polishing up on her groundwork to make you proud. We love hearing that. That's awesome. Merlin is watching from northwest Minnesota, 45 degrees and sunny. Let's see here. We have a question. Are mules a mix of a donkey and a horse? This one comes from YouTube. What do you say there, Steve?
Yes. The donkey's the father. The mother's the horse. That's what you see for an average mule. And then when you have a henny mule, the daddy is a horse and the mother is a donkey. Now, you don't see that very often, but my favorite way to breed them is artificial insemination, IA. Now, what do you think about that?
All right, there we go. Let's hear back. It was Dari. We'll just say Dari on YouTube that asked. Send us in a message. Says, hello, Steve. I hope this finds you well. I need help with what to feed my mule. I adopted Ellie over a year ago, first-time mule owner here, which that makes me, there we go, first-time mule owner. She was quite thin when I got her. I bored her at a horse farm, and with the help of many horse people, I was able to get weight on her. Since I've been following you, I've learned that Ellie is not being fed correctly. Ellie is between 16 and 20 years old, true age unknown. She weighs about 1,000 pounds and is about 15 hands. She's stalled from 4:30 p.m. to 9 a.m. This will reverse once the hot summer days begin. She receives 2 flakes of hay in the morning, 2 flakes at night. She is fed 3 quarts twice a day of high carb, high molasses grain, very limited grazing. Additional hay and grazing pasture, unfortunately, is not an option. Ellie seems to be healthy but refuses to eat her grain. I know this is not the appropriate diet for a mule. Would you please suggest a better diet? I've got the link, Steve. I'll send her the links. Go ahead and share with folks.
Folks, stay away from the grain, especially sweet feed. Well, we had one here a while back, Dave. Remember the mule was laying on the ground and he looked like he was hurting and stuff? He had been feeding sweet feed to him and he ended up was colicking. Folks, stay away from the high carbohydrates. And a flake of hay a day is enough for a meal just standing around. A flake in the morning, a flake at night, okay, or just one good flake at night. That's it. But the biggest problem with equine owners, and the vets will tell you, is you overfeed them. But you especially don't want to overfeed a mule. You talk about founder, it can happen. Okay, you can have grass founder. You see mules with big crusty necks, donkeys with big bumps all over their butt and across their back. Yeah, you know what? Too many carbohydrates. Now, you said hay. What kind of hay? Don't ever feed alfalfa. Okay, folks, it's too tough on their kidneys. Alfalfa hay is really hard on the urinary tract. So, Dave wrote, sent you the article. I mean, probably the article and the video and stuff. So the main thing is, folks, you got to feed what works for you. If your mule is standing in a corral and gets let out for a little exercise once a day, then don't feed him so much. But if you're going out on an 8-hour ride, you have to feed them accordingly. And I've got a lot of videos and stuff on that, Dave.
Yep, I just sent over, I put in the link in the comment section, a link to Mules Can't Stand Prosperity, which has ingredient list of Steve's preferred feed. It's a starting point. It's not the end all be all. It is a starting point for what you should be feeding your animal. Lakin Light is not available in all areas. And so the next best thing is to take the ingredients listed on the Mules Can't Stand Prosperity article, take that into your local feed shop, say, hey, what do you got that's closest to this, and do your best to match it up. The best way to know exactly what you need to be feeding, you need to get a hair follicle sample done at your local extension center. You can do blood work as well. They'll tell you exactly what deficiencies you have. They'll tell you exactly what your mule might naturally be overproducing, and so you don't necessarily need to give them as much as maybe a different mule, and it'll help you dial in the proper feed, and then you can adjust according to use. So that is in the Mules Can't Stand Prosperity article. And then there's a feed talk video there where Steve and James Weatherford, formerly of Lakin Milling, talk about putting together a feed and nutrition program proper for your animal. Continuing on here, got a question from Lisa. Steve, I need some advice. Dear Steve, I took a 9-year-old mule off a lady who didn't want him. He had been abused, beaten with a 2x4. Long story. Anywho, my issue is this. He's incredibly spooky, rightly so, but he is forgiving. I can't trim his feet, barely can brush him, and he attacks my goats. Killed one a month ago, killed one a couple of nights ago. I have a significant amount of knowledge training horses, but my Ruger is no horse. He really is a big love, but I'm not sure what to do with him. I've ordered your videos and, through their help, have been able to pick up his front foot once. Is he too far gone to help? Can you teach a mule not to kill little critters? Would it be possible for you to call me? So I'll tell you, Lisa, you can always give Steve a call, and I'll reply here with his information. But Steve, what would you say to Lisa?
Number one, folks, never, ever, ever put your mule in with calves or goats or sheep, okay? As you just heard, one got killed. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. It's the same thing with your baby horses. Don't put them in with a mule, okay? My wife lost a really nice colt because they reached inside the fence and got him and jerked him out and killed him. So it's what they do, okay? They feel that they're short, they're a predator type thing, and it can be a mess, can you train them not to? Nope, it's in their mind. It's what God put in there, flight and fright, and if the fright kicks in, then the fight is going to kick in. That's why I tell you folks, be careful of having your little kids around these mules, because you never know when one's going to thump them. And put helmets on them, okay? All of us should be wearing helmets anyway, but put helmets on them. But no, is there a way to do it? No. Can you eventually train on this mule? Yes, okay? Are they too far gone? Not really, but here's the thing. Be prepared for a long wait. It's not just a matter, folks, of it being beat with a 2x4, okay? I equate that to a herd leader who has just grabbed that mule and thrown him on the ground and pawed him with his front feet, stomped on him with his back feet while that mule was laying there. And that horse did that because that mule was not listening to him. And I hear the folks, tell me, they used to tell me all the time, the only way you can get their attention is first hit them with a 2x4. You don't have to do that, and I know you folks know me better than that, but let's go back. It probably wasn't a 2x4 that started the problem. It was probably a person being ignorant of how to train on one. And then you get a mule that wants to take his time and watch and listen. And instead they pressure him through, they pressure him through, they pressure him through, and he gets to where he doesn't want to do anything. Again, listen to the mule. What's the ears saying? What's the eyes saying? Things like that. Are you in over your head? Yep, you are. Have you got a chance of getting hurt? Yes, you are. You got a chance of getting hurt even with a mule that's pretty quiet. They'll hurt you inadvertently. But you get one that's a little scared, they're quicker to make a decision. They can literally crack your nose, you standing at their front feet. Okay? So don't think you're safe anywhere. So I appreciate you buying the videos. I would say to you, ground communication, ground communication, ground communication. Folks, you cannot overdo that. I cannot overemphasize. You don't need to be in the saddle. Make sure first that you're comfortable with the animal and the animal's comfortable with you. When you got one scared like that, can you imagine being on their back when they take off running? Ugly, ugly. So keep on trying. Let us know how you're doing.
Let's see here. What advice about feeding on the ground, including grazing? Do the colts seem to cowhock in the rear, or will they grow out of it, or should they have their feed raised above the ground somehow? I don't understand any of this question, Steve, which is good because it gives me an opportunity to ask so other people can know. What advice about feeding on the ground, including grazing? So do people not feed? I just thought you always put your feed on the ground and they would eat it. Is that not how you do it?
Well, I mean, you can do that if you don't have feeders. The nice thing about feeders is that you can put the feed inside of them. Like what I do is I've got a 50-gallon plastic drum,
Yeah.
and I cut the center out of it where they can get their head in there and get a bite, and I put rocks in there, 2 stones, so they have to move them around. And there's also holes in the bottom so the dirt can go out. But it's cleaner to feed them in a feeder, and you want to feed them, put the feeder down on the ground. Unfortunately, look at the feeders. They're all up high. You don't see a horse grazing. That is not grazing, folks. Grazing is nose on the ground. That's the way it should be. Yeah, there's one of my feeders there. And you can see how I took and cut it out so that the mule could reach his head in there and get a bite. The other thing too is it takes them a little longer to eat that way too, okay? But if you got one that's kind of a pig, just gets there and sucks things up, put a few stones in there so that they have to move the stones to get in there to feed, okay? And then the next part here, cowhocked, unfortunately, it comes from bad breeding for one thing. Now, cowhock means it's where the feet are pointing outward and they're bumping in the center with the hocks itself off of the leg. So where the hock is where it's coming down off the hip, comes to a sharp point, and then comes down to the cannon bone. Okay, so it's folks, if we would take our babies and keep them straight all the time they're babies, in other words, file them, make their feet straight, put a shoe on them when it comes time to fixing a contracted heel. If we would do this in the very beginning, we wouldn't have near so many crooked legs. But unfortunately, people don't think about trimming their babies. Okay, they don't think about keeping them balanced, folks. If you don't balance your tires on your car, and if you don't keep the front end good, what happens? You wear tires. If you don't trim and balance and shoe your mules correctly, guess what? You're going to start seeing it on your shoes how they're starting to wear differently. It's imperative you shoe them. And it's imperative that you trim them and keep them balanced from the day one.
Awesome. Very good. Great question there. Myra is watching from sunny and warm Southern California. We're finally drying out and the flowers are blooming. That is
Did
beautiful when
Myra
that
have a
happens.
question?
What's that?
Did, did Myra tell you her question?
I haven't seen it yet. Do you know what it is?
Oh, yeah. I
All
thought she
right.
was going to put it in there to you. All right. She wanted to know if my 5.5 inch bits got here. And yep, the 5.5 inch bit is here. Now, she liked it because she said it has a short shank. Here's the shank. Okay. Now, these shanks have a reason. It's not just for the shape. Okay. It's not just the shape. What's the reason why it does this? Instead of coming straight down would be a grazing shank. But here's what happens. And listen to this. The reason this is done this way is because mules will reach over with their tongue and they'll grab that bit on the shank and they'll pull the bit into their mouth and they'll hold on to it to keep you from pulling on them, to keep you from giving them direction. Folks, there's a difference between the mule palate, the roof of the mouth, okay, the roof of the mouth, the palate, compared to a horse palate. You got a donkey head. Just look at the head. How long it tells you. So that's why I developed the bit so that it would work properly in the mule's mouth. Again, I'm always asking Dave, why are you doing that, mule? Donkey, what? Why did you just do that? Okay, if I've made you uncomfortable, mule or donkey, was it what did you need to be, or what was it? Okay, so let's go back. When you have this type of a shank, it's called a military shank. I didn't design it. It was built by the military, the cavalry years ago, because their mules and their horses would grab that shank, jerk it in their mouth all the time. And that's why that shank is here. Now, notice that the bit hinges in the middle. You see that? Notice that the bit hinges on the side. You see that? Now, if I just want to work on one side, I can do that. I can hold my left side solid and I can train on my right hand side. Or I can hold my right hand solid, train on my left hand side. Now, it's called a correctional bit because I can correct out. Now, Dave, do we have the two bits there that shows the horse and my bit? Okay. All right, folks, do you see this? Right underneath my picture, that's my bit. And notice how the bit comes up off the table. You see that? Now look at the one on the opposite side. You see the three bits there, but the bit that's across from my bit, notice how it lays flat. Do you see that? It lays flat. So that therefore, guess what? It's it's in the it's in the back of the mouth, and when the mule hits it, he opens his mouth and gaps his mouth, trying to get away from the pressure. So what do people do? They put a cavison on their nose so that they can't open their mouth. Well, wait a minute. If the mule or the horse is trying to open its mouth, or the donkey, he's trying to tell you, I got a problem here. And it's either because the bit is designed incorrectly, like you see that bit, okay? Or it's because you put the bit on too high. Never put a bit on pre-adjusted. When you put a bridle on, always loosen it up, put it up over the ears. And yes, Myra asked me, do I have to ride with a brow band? Yes. The brow band goes in the front, is 19 inches. And what that does is it keeps the bit from tipping back in the mouth and keeps the bridle across the top of the back behind the ears, keeps it from tipping the bit back. In other words, the bridle is not just a pretty thing to put on their head. It has a purpose of balancing the bit correct. You never want to create one wrinkle or two wrinkles. You always want to allow the mule reach down, pick up the bit, and pack it. Now, this shank that I have and the one that I have on the opposite side are both the same length. It's because it's pretty much an industrial standard. And I find it works good, okay? Where people make mistakes is they take a horse bit and they put it in a mule's mouth and think he's doing okay. Folks, he'd do far better if he was comfortable.
All right, cruising right along here.
Cruising right along.
Linda the Mule Servant is watching in Disney. Springtime Beautiful. It says Linda in Disney, springtime, beautiful Central Ohio, 72 flower scented degrees and sunny. There we go. It's funny. Cedar Point is in Ohio. I'm not sure where it is in relation to you, Linda, but I had some friends who said, we were thinking about going to this point of this area of Ohio and it's near Cedar Point, and some friends that were across like, go. Cedar Point is incredible. So now I want to come to Cedar Point and I want to enjoy Cedar Point. I heard that last week and I thought it was fun. Let's see.
Far better than Disneyland.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I've heard. Cowboy Ken is watching, 69 and sunny in Connecticut. Marcia is watching in Virginia where it's sunny. Senda is watching in upstate New York. Rick says, what do you think about using treeless saddles on a mule? What's a treeless saddle and what do you think, Steve?
Okay, a treeless saddle is there's no bars in it. And the bar is the part that lays on the mule's back, on the right and on the left. Okay, and what that bar does is it evenly distributes our weight across that mule's back, across his ribs, evenly distributes it. So now, instead of me on a treeless saddle sitting in one place and breaking down the back, okay, what it does, it evenly distributes so that it distributes my weight across the mule's back. A treeless saddle does not do that. A treeless saddle makes you put all of your weight in one place. And folks think they can get a treeless saddle, that they can put it on anything. No, what you're going to do is end up crippling your mule, which I've seen too many times, unfortunately. A treeless saddle, folks, does not help your mule be healthy. The bars, those wooden bars that lay on their back, is what evenly distributes that weight and gives the mule some relaxation. And besides that, where the rear cinch is, it's tied down to the cantle, which is the back of the saddle where you sit. Okay, and here's the problem: when you cinch down that back cinch, the idea of my saddle is when I cinch down the back cinch, the front of the saddle comes up, takes the pressure off of the scapula. You can't do that on a treeless saddle. You can't take the pressure off the scapula. Matter of fact, if you look at the treeless saddle and know how it's made, where the swell is in the front comes right down on top of a working area, and that's where they cinch it down, and you end up there again. You end up crippling your mule. And folks, get this in your mind. Crippling your mule takes a space of time. Yes, it can happen quick, but it's just a little at a time. Pretty soon you start breaking down they're like the fiber on the top of the shoulder blade and things like this. Folks, just because the mule is not showing there's a problem doesn't mean the problem's not there.
Let's see here. Hey, Jim, Western Maryland, 72 degrees, sunny, and guess who? David Scholl, Queensland, Australia. Summer is finally over. Weather is cooling down. That's right. We're the opposite of you guys out there. It's about to heat up over here. So you enjoy that cool weather for us. David O'Brien says, I've never started a colt before. Steve's methods yield great results. So we love hearing that. That's fantastic. Lane is watching, 39 degrees, Spring River, Oregon. How aggressive should I be in brushing out shedding mules in colder areas?
You're talking to a guy that does very little brushing, folks. I usually take a pair of leather gloves and I rub them a little bit and make sure there's not any big mud chunks, and I throw my saddle on. I don't do much brushing. So when it comes down to that, yeah, there's all kinds of saw blades that you can use to shave them down and stuff. Don't worry about it. Let the mule naturally fluff off his winter hair. Okay, just let him naturally do it. I used to take him. We're getting ready to show, and we're taking shears and we're cleaning them down to it's their summer coat, and it's during the winter, and we're putting blankets on them. Don't do that, folks. You don't need to do that. I mean, you can if you want to, but you really don't need to. Just let them naturally shed it out. And I can tell you, it all gets sheds out except for the lower part underneath the belly. That usually takes the longest and is usually the ugliest. But I wouldn't worry about it. You just take a couple gloves and rub them down and throw the saddle on and go ride.
Polly is watching from Barnesville, Minnesota, 61 and beautiful. Today, my 27-year-old draft mule, really well trained, proved that every day is different for a mule. I gathered up my snow shovels and was dragging them across the grass to the barn, and she freaked out. So yes, every day is a different day for a mule. Matter of fact, let me see. We got Sherman right there. Every day is a different day for a mule. You got the t-shirts, y'all, muleranch.com. You can join all of our Queen Valley Mule Ranch friends in representing the mule and the donkey. Thanks for sending that in, Polly. I appreciate you sharing, and thanks for sending in your picture, Sherman. Eileen says, do you completely stop doing your groundwork or wait when you see an elevated head and a little bit of concern with the mule? It seems the slower I go, the better, Nellie responds. Does that mean she questions my leadership when we do something new?
No, she's not questioning your leadership. She's just questioning, all right, how's this going to work for me? That's okay. She just needs to see that, yeah, you changed a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. We're just going to go better and slower. Now, some animals you can move slower paces, some animals faster paces. So you just have to read the animal, listen to them, see what they have to say. And remember, when they elevate their head, a few seconds later, they can lower it if you will change your technique. Maybe you might not need to bump so much. Maybe you need to put your hand in a different place. But just try different things to see when the animal is the happiest.
All right. Trep is watching. 2 donkeys for sale in the Dallas area. Message here if that's okay. So you guys can go find Trep on YouTube. He's got 2 donkeys for sale in the Dallas area. Grandpa is watching. Grandpa of Suppy T something. Steve Brady, Delta, Colorado, hot and sunny, 85 degrees. Went from winter to summer in the last 2 weeks. Boy, isn't that the truth. Jack is watching from Johannesburg. Quick ride down the road yesterday. Low 70s. Finally, snow is going quick now. That's right. Candy's watching from Indiana. Beautiful day. Enjoy your broadcast. Barbara says hi from Missouri. Beautiful, sunny, and in the 70s. I'm late joining today, but better late than never. Marcia says Waylon. How cute. Yes, I thought that was a unique and cute name too. Jerry says, hi, Dave and Steve. Hope you had a great Easter. Jesus has risen. 79 degrees here in Indiana. Thanks for all you two do to educate us about our mules. Let's see here. Linda says, at some point I may start looking for Theo's successor. Not sure, but maybe. Anyways, when I start with temperament and conformation, does it matter if the previous owner has broken him to ride? Should I favor an animal who is completely green, or should I just treat my new mule as if he were green, whether he's been worked or not? What would you say, Steve?
Well, all of the above. I just because somebody said the mule has been da 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 da, I don't pay attention to that. I just go up my steps. I just do my groundwork, surf single work, and I just go up the steps. I'd rather have a new mule, a young mule that doesn't have a bunch of baggage. But young mules can have baggage because people use nylon halters on them. And nylon halters they create more problems. Oh, but it's pretty, Steve. Well, it's pretty, but you're giving your mule bad habits, okay? And those halters are meant to be put on a certain way. So let's go on. It's as much as you have tried in this sort of thing, I bet you could do a young mule that's untouched, so to speak, or had minimal amounts of touching. David Scholl, he sells them that way, where they've got a good halter foundation there in Australia, and he's got all of his mules sold, and he sells quality animals too, because he's got a quality jack and quality mares.
All right. Yolanda says, woo, I made it. End of this month, I order a buckaroo. There we go. I'm thinking she means a saddle, not a cowboy. We'll
Yeah,
see.
buckaroo. Yeah,
Mail order cowboy.
yeah. He's in the
Sean is
Netherlands.
watching Sunny 74, Valiant, Oklahoma. A mule is trying to be an escape artist, always biting at the lead rope when tied up. What do you suggest trying?
Well, I will take and I never use ropes to tie folks. It's too easy for colts, especially to chew them through. And I've gone through a lot of lead ropes over the years figuring that out. I always chain them. I just have a chain with a snap, and that works good. If they're older mules, then it'd be a different story. I tell you, the other thing I would do, and that is put some Tabasco sauce on the rope. And if that's not good enough, put some habanero sauce on it, and that will help them out. But otherwise, folks, I pretty much use chains to chain them up, especially young ones. They're wanting to chew, and their teeth are changing all the way up to they're 7 years old. It's not that they're being malicious; they're wanting to chew on something. So the chain does a good job of doing that.
All right. We got oh my gosh, Steve, I can't believe it's past 4 o'clock. I did not realize it was past 4. We were just flying here.
Yeah,
Are you okay on time? Can we finish these last several?
yeah, we're good. Yeah, I've got training tonight with the fire department. We're doing wildland training, so that's about an hour away.
Okay, we'll hustle up here. Yolanda says mine gets 4 hay flake meals in 24 hours, morning, midday, evening, night, and she is not gaining weight or losing weight at all. And that's what you were talking about there. You understand your animal, you know what they need, you feed according to use, and you know them better than anybody else would.
Yeah,
Let's see
and
here.
Yolanda's in the Netherlands, so it's 2 o'clock in the morning there right now.
Yeah, dedication, Yolanda. Hey, you know what? Second glockenspiel for you. Brian is watching from Wisconsin, sunny and 81. Daryl is watching with Bobby Joe in Alabama, sunny and 75. There was a song that I grew up listening to. It's like sunny with the high and 75 since you took my heavy heart and made it light. My wife and I, we both, whenever we hear sunny and 75, we both sing that to each other. Hannah is watching from Florida where it's 78 degrees and cloudy. Marcia, you were talking about ignorant folks earlier. Marcia goes, yep, ignorant is right. Linda says Cedar Point is up on the lake near Sandusky. Yes, that makes sense. That sounds exactly like what they were saying. Marcia says no higher than the chest for feeding. Patrick is watching from Nakups, British Columbia. Lots of good info here and learning. International. Thank you, Patrick. Judy says, what do you use to worm mules?
Well, it really depends on what you're worming them for. All right. So, worms are worms. I mean, you have large and small strongi. So, I usually use Zamectin, but you want to change them out every year. Like you use Zamectin 1 year, then you'll use another type another year and change them back and forth. But Zamectin's one of my favorite ones.
Okay, we're cruising. We're cruising. Marcia says, cool feeder. Rick says, thanks for the information. Lori is watching from Central Florida. It's breezy. I could use a little bit more rain around these parts. Let's get some, Jesus, you hear that? Let's get some rain out there. Brian says, hope y'all had a good Easter. We did. Thank you so much, Brian. Eileen says, thank you, Steve. Judy says, thank you, Steve and Dave. Lorraine says, hello from Monrovia, California. Steve, what is the purpose of your trail ride bit being able to move on each end versus being a solid bit? So we talked about that already. She just came in. Steve, just give us the real quick answer there.
Okay, so here's the purpose of doing this. What we want to do is let's just say my mule wants to go to the left and is pushing against me. And so what most people do is they pull the rein on the right, trying to keep it from going to the left. But what you want to do is you want to take your bit and you want to take your shank and you want to pull up on it. Pull up on it, take the shoulder away. As you can see by this bit, I can change it all kinds of ways, make it small or short or long, but I can take a hold of that shoulder and I can roll that shoulder up and I can just train on one side. If one side's the problem, I don't want to make this side unhappy. So my left side says, I want to go this way. And so my right side, I hold solid and my left side, I pick up. And you see, I can change that really nice and quiet. Train on one side at a time.
All right. Yolanda laughed at my joke. She goes, "No, no, no, Buck, man. I'm happily married." Let's see. Gloria says hi from Arcanum, Ohio. Daryl says, "Don't give up your day job." LOL. I guess that might be my jokes. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We really do appreciate it. I can't believe this. The hour flew by real quick. We went 10 minutes
Yeah.
over, and we haven't done that in a long time. Steve, anything you want to say? Oh, yes, there is something you want to say. Right here.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a friend of mine that done this artwork for me several years ago. And notice the bit on the left-hand side where the shanks are really long and hanging down. Myra from California, she said she liked my short shank because it would be easier on the animal. Folks, the shank has nothing to do, and the shank is the part where your rein goes into. The shank has nothing to do with how your animal responds to you. What on these bits, it's your hands. Your hands. Notice the rider on my right hand side, the mule's head is in the air, the hands are in the air, the shoulders are in the air, and the mule is really uncomfortable. Notice in my left hand picture, yes, I'm making fun of the great big bit, but notice my hands are down. My hands are in direct reining position. My shoulders are down. I'm working with the animal. Now, yes, it's a joke about the shanks, but it don't take long, folks. Start thinking about reading your animal. Listen to your mule and donkey. Happy trails to you. We'll see you later.
Oh, hey, Steve.
Whoa. Oh, man, yeah. Look, Jesus showed up. Y'all see that? You see that donkey? Do you see all them people flopping things in the air? Do you hear? Can you hear the music? See people dancing around? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is that a come along hitch? Yes. Now, isn't that neat? Folks, now listen to this. You've heard and you saw the different people training earlier. This guy here called me last year. This is a big deal that comes on Easter every year. The Easter pageant for the Mormons. They put on this fantastic show and showing Jesus coming in on the donkey, and it's phenomenal. But the owner of that donkey, he's one of my clients, been riding my saddles for over 25 years, been to my clinics, watched me train and stuff, calls me up 2 years ago. He says, Steve, I need a donkey for the pageant really bad. I need a donkey. Now, can you imagine, folks? We're only talking a few weeks away, and he needs to train his donkey to do this. And we got other pictures, Dave. I think I got the one picture here of, yeah, of, you probably got that one, don't you, Dave?
Well, that's from a long time ago.
That's from last year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, now listen. I said, Roland, I want you to remember what I taught you about the come along hitch. Go take that come along hitch now and start using it. All right. Now, the picture that you saw on my camera that I picked it up that Dave didn't, doesn't have, that was the first time that donkey had ever been rode. All right. Now let me go back. Did you hear me say first that he put that Jesus person on that donkey for the very first time and then took him through the crowds, folks? That's how much them donkeys and them mules will pay attention to that come along rope. I want you to get it in your mind. You cannot desensitize them against all this stuff. You can't do it, Dave. Dave, you want me to send you that thing?
Yeah, yes, send it to me now because it's somewhere. I just don't have it queued up ready to go. I've got it somewhere, but I don't know where.
There you go. Now, folks, this is what I'm trying to tell you, and I want to get this point across. Writing is not the important part. Building a foundation of trust, I'm the herd leader, that's what's important. Right here. all the people singing, all the crowds going on, the bright lights, the music, the dancing, everything, people sitting on the floor, people sitting in chairs, all kinds of stuff going on. And look at this donkey. I mean, we're going to look at it in a second, but look at this head. The donkey's head is down. And notice the guy leading the donkey barely has one hand on the donkey, and the lead rope is loose. The donkey's not trying to drag him. The donkey is lifted there. Look how the ears are relaxed. Look at all that going on. They're singing Hosanna, which they should be to our Lord. Okay, but look, you see that, folks? Look at the mule. His ears are floppy and relaxed. His head is down, the nose is on vertical. Right there in that picture was the first time that donkey had ever been ridden, and he put him on right there during. Of course, I would never do that. I would prep him first. But see, he's not a professional trainer, folks. He's not a professional trainer. And look what he was able to do in a short time with this donkey. Now, this was less than 3 weeks away when he started this donkey. That's what you could do with a come-along hitch, folks. Don't think you can't get it done. Look, it can be done. Use that come-along hitch. Use that surcingle. And look what you can end up getting done. Even Jesus would want to go with you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate you. Take care. We'll see you next week.